What is poppin', y'all? Is Breezy118 back with another video. Today I'm gonna be showing y'all how to do a mid taper. I started working in a shop finally, so I'm gonna try to start filming more videos like this. But I'm gonna just try to show y'all how to do a little mid taper. So first, what you're gonna do is you're gonna obviously cape them up, put the little neck wraps, everything, but you're gonna pin the hair up. And then what I do with the mask, if you gotta keep it on, you just twist it and it ends up looking like that, so it's out the way. You don't really gotta move it or worry about it too much, but you're gonna pin the hair up, comb it out. You're gonna make it that first bald line. But how I do it is I do it kind of in like an A shape, to where it's like half a triangle, you feel me? So it's got a point up top, then you're gonna bald that out. And I also want to apologize because I didn't realize how bad my camera angle was throughout a lot of this video. I'm in the way a lot, like my hand or something. But you're also going to want to always kind of sweep the hair away, brush the hair away with either a duster or a comb or something, because you always want to work on a clean canvas. But what I'm doing is I'm taking my clippers with no guard, and I'm gonna flip that lever open, and I'm just gonna make my first guideline after that bald line, not too far up, as you guys could see. Then I'm gonna take my clippers and I'm gonna put on that half guard, and I'm gonna make another guideline right above that last one you just made, also with the lever open, kind of the same distance, the same like width, as the same last guideline that you just made. That's what you're gonna do. When you're cutting hair, also always remember to use that flick out motion. You flick away from the head, so then it could be a cleaner blend and easier to blend. But what I'm doing right now also is I just keep combing the hair down. Like every little step I take, I just keep combing the hair down so it's all laying down. But what I did right here is I took my number 1 guard and I also had it open, and I'm just trying to follow that first bald guideline in the same arch type direction, and I'm flicking out. And now I'm gonna take my 1.5 guard after I do all that, and I'm gonna also have that open, and I'm gonna go almost all the way up, but I'm gonna leave that last part up there for my number 2 guard closed, because I want that darker color up top. Now right here with this part, I'm using the number 2 closed, and you can see when I get towards the top of the hair, I'm a little more cautious because I don't want to shave off any of the top hair, like the curly hair up on top, the longer hair, because how he has his hair, it's sectioned off, which is actually pretty easy, because a lot of the time you have to blend that taper up into that long hair, which is pretty hard, and sometimes you might bring it up too high or whatever. But you can see right here what I'm doing with that number 2 guard. I'm just being very cautious with that top hair. I'm using my other hand to push it back so it doesn't really get in the way, but just keep flicking out. But that's my number 2 guard closed. And right here with this part, I'm taking my end of my comb, and what I'm basically doing is I'm just trying to make that part a little cleaner. I haven't cut his hair before, so whatever barber he had before, I'm not sure if he made this part in his hair or not, but it just wasn't as clean as I'd like it to be. I'd like it to look better now that I'm cutting his hair now. He's like my little walking advertisement. If someone comes up and sees his hair, asks him who cut him, he wants to tell him Versace cuts did. But basically what this is doing, this is just creating that last step that you got to go on. This is still a closed number 2, just to make that part cleaner, like I said before, and just really make it super dark up there. But now what I did is I took that number 2 guard, and I'm still just going crazy, still just making sure I don't have no type of bulk up there. But Now this is where you really start blending. So this is my 1.5 guard, and I'm gonna go down to that last guideline you really just made, and I'm gonna start utilizing my corners, the corners of the clippers, the corners of the guard, to really try to do some detail work and try to just blend that guideline out. Sometimes with cutting hair, you can't really tell, especially if it's super short. You can't really tell that anything's happening, but trust and believe there is. You could also hear it within the clippers. You could hear that it's really cutting that hair, but try to avoid using the whole, the entire top of your clippers. Try to use just the corners when you're really trying to blend everything together. As you can see right here, I already moved on to my number 1 guard closed, and I'm really using the corners of my clippers right here because it's a smaller blending space. So you want to be super cautious on where you're cutting, where you're setting your clippers down. And right here, I'm not sure if you can really tell, but I'm just kind of playing with the lever, opening and closing it constantly to try to really get that blend looking nice. But now I've moved on to my closed half guard, and this is gonna go not that bald line yet, but that first guideline you guys put in from no guard on the clippers to that first guard on the clippers. You're gonna close your half guard, and you're just gonna really use your corner and keep going over that same spot, and make sure you flick out, especially on these parts, because the shorter the hair, the harder it is to blend, I personally think. So just keep flicking out and really just try to work your magic on that. I'm not sure if this is just me or not, but I can't just always go from one clipper to another. Just keep going down or keep going in order. I always have to switch back and forth if I see a little spot that I've missed or something that I need to fix. I always just try to go back with my different guards and try to really knock out those lines just to try to get the cleanest blend I possibly can. But what I'm doing now is I took the guards off of my clippers, and I'm closing and opening halfway, all the way, just those levers, and really flicking out from the bald skin into that taper. And this is what that side's gonna look like without the lineup. And as you can see right here, I was just kind of spinning my client's chair at different angles, really looking in the mirror to try to get a new fresh set of eyes so I could really see how that blend looks. So what I do is I'll look in the mirror, and I'll go ahead and look at the blend to see if there's little spots that I've missed that I can't see looking straight at the blend. But what I'm doing now is I'm gonna line up his hairline, the side of his head and everything, where his temple's at, with the corner of my T-liners, because you don't want to just go flat in with the blade like I was explaining earlier with the regular clippers as well. That's not the way to go. Always use your corners. That's the cleanest it'll get. For this part, I'm just moving his ear back so I can get a cleaner view of that hair going behind the ears in that perfect arc. But just really use your corners. That's all I'm trying to say. Just really use your corners. And what I'm doing right here, because my T-liners used to be super sharp, I'm just being kind of cautious, because I believe this is the first time I've used my T-liners since I remodified them because my screws were stripped. But I'm just kind of tapping on his hairline, not so much dragging the whole blade across, because that's just what I had to be used to. Because I would, if I was not cautious enough with my old liners, I would cut them easy. This part isn't so special, a lot of barbers' favorite part of the whole haircut is the lineup usually, but this might be mine right here. Is what I was just doing. I was using my shavers to try to get really all of those little hairs that wouldn't shave off with my liners, because it really makes the blend pop straight from bald skin right up into the hair. When you use straight razors, make sure you really stretch out their skin, because it's super easy to cut them because the blade is super thin, and no matter how hard you press in, it could just slice them real easy without you even noticing, or without them even noticing. But you always want to try to avoid that, but just really stretch out that skin. But now we're going to be moving on to the back taper, and you're going to also want to clip his hair up as well. now this first step on the back taper, what I'm doing is I have closed my number 2 guard, and I'm just going to go ahead and get all of that bulk out of there, and I'm going to get it to the longest point that I want it without making that first bald line. Once again, be super cautious with that longer hair on top. Like I said, I'm lucky, and I had a lucky case where it was already sectioned off like pretty good to where I didn't have to fix the part too much, but just be super cautious with that top longer hair. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my liners and I'm going to make that first initial bald line, but I'm not going to do it just straight across. I'm going to make it kind of in like a rainbow shape, but not, it's going to be more on the flatter side more than the arc side. I see barbers do this a whole bunch of different ways. Working in the shop now, you know, I get to observe other barbers just to see how they do things versus how I do things. But I usually switch off with when I use my shavers. I use my shavers when I feel is necessary. You don't necessarily need to use them before the haircut, or you don't necessarily need to use them after the haircut's finished. But whatever you feel might be easier to do, go ahead and do it. So I just did that before I started blending everything out versus how I did on the side of his taper. But I just made that first guard line with the no guard on the clippers, lever open. Now I'm going in with my half guard, lever open. I am now going in with my number 1 guard open, and I'm going to just keep flicking out. But with the back taper, don't try to take it too high towards the top too soon. Now I'm taking my 1.5 guard open and I'm going almost all the way towards the top, kind of already blending it in into the number 2 closed. What I'm doing now is I'm closing that guard on that same number, the 1.5, and I've closed it, and I've just brought my clippers a little bit lower than that last line I made, and I'm just gonna keep flicking out, really trying to blend that top line. Now I've taken my 1 guard and I've also closed it, brought it down just a little bit lower, and I'm gonna start flicking out. And usually the 1 guard is where the hair goes from a very noticeable lighter color, a lighter shade, because the hair is shorter, so it's closer to skin, into that bulkier hair, that darker hair up top. So basically what I'm saying is that part's super important, so just really pay attention and really try to fix that part. But what I'm doing right now is I've taken my 1.5 guard and I went back up and closed the lever as well, because I noticed that line was still pretty harsh and not as soft as I wanted it to be. Something I've really noticed is barbering, like cutting hair, you know, it's all about details. Like, you really need to keep your eyes open and look at everything from all different types of angles so you can really achieve that perfect blend that you're going for. But now what I'm doing is I've taken my half guard and I've also closed it, and I'm going into that first guideline that I say, and just really be mindful of the corners of your clippers and really focus on flicking out. And don't be afraid to play with the lever, you know, like your client will understand. Obviously, they don't want to walk out of your chair with a messed up fade, a messed up taper, or anything like that. So really just be paying attention, be on the lookout for any lines that you can really get rid of before you say you're finished and you're done with the haircut. something that you'll come to notice with a lot of tapers. They'll have that little strip of hair connecting the side and the back taper, but sometimes they won't. It'll just be the longer hair on top. But in this case, he has that little strip of hair back there, which I haven't hit yet. So I'm gonna take my clothes too, and I'm just gonna shave that hair off right there. And now I'm taking my liners, and I'm gonna make a clean line from that back taper going around the ear back to that side taper up there in the front. Always remember to use the corner of those liners because they could be super sharp without you even knowing it. But also be as light-handed as you possibly can, because usually if you're more light-handed, the hair goes in your direction that you want it to, and it'll be easier to cut, and their skin won't turn out as red or whatever color it turns, you know, afterwards. It'll just be kind of their natural skin tone. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Go ahead and repeat those steps on the other side, but go ahead and like this video, subscribe, comment some tips, some advice y'all got for me. Ask questions if you need it, but always keep it breezy.